Even though I really think that the pictures are an indoor topic, I wanted to get back outside into the woods today, so here we are. I was thinking earlier when I was contemplating the pictures from here on in that they're going to get pretty lofty, pretty philosophical for most of us, theoretical. And so I wanted to think about that and have a little bit of a discussion about how to use philosophy when it's above our experience, when it's beyond what we're seeing or touching or how we're understanding at this point. I think it's important, at least to me, in spiritual life, when you read these higher ideals, that you don't construct great philosophical castles of related information that you can talk for hours on and conjecture on and lecture on and still know nothing of, because they're not part of our experience. But rather to think about that higher ideal, think about that thing that the scripture is pointing to, and draw lines of implication down to where you are at, to what you're actually going through and what you're actually experiencing. You know, when we saw yesterday in the picture the perceiving the bull, there's a part of me that wanted to say, well, gosh, how many of us really actually get to perceive the bull or actually even understand the problem? And I think the answer to that is really about paying attention. So many of us are so ready to say that we haven't had a spiritual experience. And I would say that that's because you've been raised in a golden house and cannot understand the scarcity of gold. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, even look around me, the things in my background, the trees and this life. We've reached ever farther out into the universe, and yet we still have not found a place where even a single form of life is thriving on a planet. We haven't found any indication of something like what we enjoy regularly. Not just one or two life forms on a planet, but a planet teeming with thousands, uncountable numbers of life forms. And the hidden technology in all of those life forms that even our greatest sciences, not scientists, but sciences, have not yet been able to duplicate. You know, I remember talking a little bit about the solar power in a leaf and how amazing that is, that behind me, that light falling on those green leaves is feeding those trees. That's the golden house that we've been raised in, a house full of spiritual experience, a house full of miracles, of things that we are only beginning to even scratch the surface of understanding. If we look into our own body, I've talked about that idea before, about being able to ingest a carrot, and the body, without you having any idea how, dismantles that carrot down to the molecular level, and then reassembles things that it needs and sends pieces in changed format through a circulatory system to cells to use as they need. You know, detecting all at once through the body where troubles are and where needs are, and being able to adjust its systems accordingly. All of this while you're happily riding along in this vehicle with no idea what's going on or how it's happening. You don't have to learn to drive, really. It just kind of keeps going on its own. So if you feel like that, if you feel like you have no spiritual experience, pay more attention to your mind and to your body and to this experience of being. Watch a thought in your mind and wonder, what is a thought? We're so casual about them, and yet I have not been able to come up with a definition of what a thought is to me. Where do they come from, and how do they link together, and how do they present information to me, a watcher of my own mind? You see, much of our spiritual experience, I think, comes from realization. And what does realization mean? It doesn't mean something new and flashy and miraculous and like, oh my God. Realization is realization. You realize something. You look inside and you see that I'm not mind and body. How? Is that just a philosophical entity of belief? No, it's experiential once you begin paying attention. When Nisargadatta points out, the mere fact that you can perceive something, the mere fact that you are presented with sensory input, is proof in and of itself that it is not you, because you are perceiving it. You are the one watching it. So realization is not about seeing something new. It's about seeing something very old for the first time, again, as it were. So today we're talking about the third picture in our series, I think it is. The fourth one, the fourth photo in our ox herding series from the 12th century Chinese mystic in Zen Buddhism, in case you're tuning in for the first time. And today we actually catch the bull. Now, what does that mean? How does that mean? Well, let me read the poem that goes with it today. It says, "I seize him with a terrific struggle. His great will and power are inexhaustible. He charges to the high plateau far above the cloud mists, or in an impenetrable ravine he stands." This idea, that we're jumping on a raging bull. Now, I talked yesterday about the bull being a representation of pure mind, the self, the highest self. Pure mind and Brahman, or pure mind and that ultimate reality, are one and the same. Pure mind is a mind completely still. It acts as a piece of glass to the reality. It's not distorted with ego anymore. And so he's saying here that we seize him with a terrific struggle, to be able to align the ego self, which is the young man who's making this adventure, who's running after this bull. For him to catch this bull, means bringing himself into a harmony with the bull, bringing himself into close contact with the bull, touching the bull, becoming familiar with the bull, anticipating the bull, and ultimately in the forthcoming pictures to be able to tame and control the bull in that sense. So you can talk about it in sort of a reverse obvious way, which is to understand that the transformation is actually happening in the young man or young woman who is looking for the bull, and that it's actually she or he that is coming into harmony with the bull. Or you can say that the bull itself is going through a transition or a transformation, in that it's coming from impure mind, which is in conjunction with ego. Once the two are in the same frame together, in the same picture, you've got ego and pure mind. Mind isn't so pure anymore. You've got the two of them in the same frame. I kind of like that interpretation of it. And as the two come closer together, the conflict gets more direct, like he's talking about here. And there's sort of a meeting, in the middle, in the end, both are transformed into a singularity of purity. A singularity with no me and mine, no ego will to drive it, but rather a cohesion of harmony, as it were. So we see that he seizes him with a terrific struggle, and that's the biggest part of spiritual life, is this purification process, which is always referred to as the beginning in spiritual life. But the beginning is like 99% of the journey. And so that's why the Buddhists say you have to become content with being a beginner. Until you know that you know nothing, you really can't move forward. And I think that has a lot to do with that inspiration at the beginning that we talked about, of understanding the amazing, outrageously amazing experience of now, of this minute, of this experience, which has become so common that we were raised in a golden house. We have no idea how valuable and how rare the pure gold is, around us. So we've tasted this ocean. We're in the same frame of the picture. We have actually caught hold of mind a little bit. We're starting to undergo the process of purifying the mind, and the struggle has begun. His great will and power are inexhaustible. That mind is going all over the place. That ride with the ego self, trying to bring about this peaceful state of tranquility. At first we're all over the place. We sit there and watch our mind and we're like, oh my God, where am I even going to put the rope to tame this thing? It's all over the place. He says, with great will and power, it's inexhaustible. He charges to the high plateau far above the cloud mists. These ideals, sometimes they run up there. We're like, oh my gosh, perfection. How can I ever? Oh, this is so amazing, so incredible. Even if you do have a moment of some sort of spiritual experience, where you see something amazing or experience something incredibly beautiful as such, it seems so far away and so distant from life. But it's not. It's a bull. It's here and now. He charges to the high plateau far above the cloud mists, or in an impenetrable ravine he stands, to penetrate that deepest understanding, to be able to follow the pure mind. It's impossible. The ego cannot go where pure mind goes. The ego cannot reach the heights or the depths of pure mind. And that's why it's such a hard thing to believe in, because we're purely ego as far as our uh, belief in ourselves, our wrong thinking, our wrong ideas about ourselves. You know, our wrong ideas are composed of material input, material ideals. And from the material, the material only points at the things that we are. It only points at us. It's a reflection of us. You know, you can't go into the mirror to study the self. You have to study the self by what's implied in the mirror, the implication of your being, of your existence. You know, I like to bring up that point again that I'm so excited about lately. This idea of letting the changing mind implicate the stillness of the one watching it. You know, that you're not moving, the mind is moving. That's how you can tell it's moving. To sit there and do yoga, you know, to move your arms like this until they get so tired that the only way that you can possibly keep going is to detach from them and let the movement of the body imply the stillness of you, the self, inhabiting the body. You know? And to separate that place, to find that individual self. So let this changing world, let the struggles of your life imply the lack of struggle to the self. That's how you recognize it as struggle, because you are standing in a place free of struggle. When you're sitting in meditation, you know, that self has been meditating for eons. It's the perfect meditator. That's why it's realization. You don't have to learn how to meditate. You have to come to know that you have always meditated. You have always been watching in the greatest, most profound sense of patience and tranquility ever. Let the struggle of trying to meditate implicate the perfect meditator within. Does that make sense? I don't know. It's new of a couple of weeks for me, and it's been thrilling to me. Some of the ideas that it's given to me, and actually given me a place that, in a sense, I can retreat to. When I read the news and be like, oh my God, what's going on in this world? What is going on in this country? What is going on with my beloved people? Really, what are we doing? I can't survive in that space. I've never seen anything like this in my life. Either that or I've become too sensitive to it. I don't know. But at least this place, this implicated place, where my soul sees the trouble and knows trouble because it is in a place of no trouble, is a wonderful ideal. It's a wonderful embrace that I have really been working on making very loud, on amplifying in my life. You know, and I think that this picture kind of gives us that hint that these are the first stages of our realization, to know this and to find this. So today, you've caught the bull. Now, we've got to prevent ourselves from being dragged all over the place.